Okay, so the ban list happened, it was crazy. I'm glad it finally put an end to one of the most toxic formats of all time. But what if I told you that there was actually a format in the past that was just as toxic, if not more? Allow me to re-jog your memory about a certain Tier 0 format. Yeah, that one format. Ah, yes, 2017, an era where Yu-Gi-Oh was actually family friendly and before the Link Nation attacked. This was a peaceful era that involved a lot of normal summoning, setting cards to the back row, and passing your turn. Only not in the way that you would have anticipated. Feast your eyes on some of the cutest, but also the scariest beast monsters in the history of the game. The ZOODIACs. This was an archetype that was based on XC summoning, and the lore was actually kind of amusing. They were basically 12 different beast warriors that were modeled off of the Chinese Zodiac. And of course the XC's mechanic being that you had to overlay 2 or more monsters to make an XC's monster. Someone at Konami decided that they would go, hey, you know what? We should break this mechanic and make it so you can XC summon with just one single monster instead. And they didn't even stop there because you could actually overlay the XC's monsters on top of each other. Nah, there's no way they wouldn't balance out these effects when you bypass the entire summoning mechanic of requiring 2 or more monsters, right? You're just using one card, right? They had to have balanced the effects, right? Well. So when you had a deck that allowed you to search for a consecutive copy of the monster you literally just used to free XC summon, and then overlay another monster on top of that that has a quick effect pop for any face-up card on the field during either player's turn, things got a little bit chaotic to say the least. Zodiac Broadbow and Dryden were bad enough on their own, but they also included some pretty busted effects for the monsters themselves. Zodiac Rapier was probably the worst offender. This card allows you to detach a material from any XC's monster that used itself as material to summon out consecutive copies of Rapier, which led to some chaos because then you could overlay double Rapier for any rank 4 for free, and Daigusto Emerald made it so you could shuffle back the Rapier so you could just do the same combo again. It really didn't help that they released Elder Entity Norden around the same time, which comboed well with Instant Fusion and allowed you to get a free rank 4 like Daigusto Emerald to repeat and rinse the combo. Zodiac Tiger Mortar allowed you to detach a material from itself to then place another Zodiac monster from your graveyard onto an existing XC's as material. This was really useful to kind of cycle through the toolbox of effects based on whatever monsters you had in your graveyard already, or to multiply the attack of a certain XC's with a couple of different bodies. Zodiac Whiptail allowed you to make your XC's monsters into DD Warrior Ladies, and Zodiac Thoroughblade would do massive piercing damage if you boosted your attack. Zodiac Bunny Blast and Ram Ram were interesting because they had effects when they were destroyed, allowing you to either add back a Zodiac card from your graveyard or special summon a Zodiac monster from your graveyard to the field. They also negated spell or trap cards that targeted the XC's monster that had it as material. Zodiac Cataroost let you recycle resources by shuffling them back from the graveyard, and also negating monster effects that targeted the XC's monster. But I didn't see any play either, because all the other monsters were just way better. Zodiac Borbo would let you attack directly, meaning you could boost his attack to huge numbers, then potentially swing direct for game. All of the XC's would gain the attack of any materials that were actually beneath it, so this meant you could do some serious damage if you had multiple Thoroughblades beneath, or equipped a bunch of Whiptails back to the XC's monster using Tiger Mortar or the effect of Whiptail in your hand. They also received a generous spell card that allowed you to summon an endless amount of Zodiacs from your deck. Zodiac Barrage was a continuous spell card that once per turn allowed you to pop any face-up card you controlled to then special summon out a Zodiac from your deck, meaning yes, you can actually pop itself or a copy of Fire Formation Tenki to then get a free summon, adding a lot of consistency to the deck's plays while also giving the deck basically 3 free emergency teleports. Now guys, really quick before we dive in, I wanted to mention that today's video is sponsored by OBSBOT. You may or may not have noticed, but we're actually using the brand new OBSBOT Meet 2 webcam to record this current footage, and I have to say it honestly looks really crisp. The OBSBOT Meet 2 is a brand new 4K webcam from OBSBOT that's also the smallest 4K webcam available on the entire market. It blends together their classic Meet series with a sleek new compact design, and you can actually choose from 3 colors including Cloud White, Space Gray, or Aurora Green. The form factor surprised me. This is smaller than half of a card and it fits right into your pocket. It's honestly as small as a wireless earphone case, and the quality is great. I mean, guys, look at this. I was honestly so shook by how crystal clear this quality was. Now, being a 4K webcam, there are a couple of different resolution options. You can either enjoy the ultra clear 4K resolution at 30 frames per second, or the 1080p with 60 frames per second, which is what we're currently recording as, and you can see how smooth that is. Like, look at this. It's like butter. Holy crap. Tech-wise, it's got a 1.5-inch CMOS sensor, as well as an f of 1.8 aperture. There's a built-in HDR, which allows you to toggle between varied lighting setups. It also comes with PDAF, which is phase detection autofocus. So yep, it can actually autofocus directly and really precise on the subject at the forefront automatically. There are also dual built-in omnidirectional microphones in the webcam itself. Now for transparency's sake, we're using an external mic to record this footage right now, but if you're ever on the go, all you have to do is plug and play with the actual webcam and you can record audio as well. The Me Too features AI technology for real-time framing adjustments, so you can always keep yourself in the shot. There's a group mode setting that is best for a large group of people. The dynamic portrait mode is better for social media. Out of the box setup is super easy because you get the camera as well as a magnetic mount, which means you can just clip the camera right onto the magnetic mount with the strength of the magnets. But for those of you guys that actually want to mount this onto a tripod or something similar, it's got the classic 1/4 inch thread on the bottom, so you can definitely hook it up to any tripod. The OBSBOT sensor software is really great that can let you seamlessly interact with the camera and also enable things like the AI auto framing we talked about, as well as beauty mode. You can, of course, integrate the webcam with other softwares that are out there, and it's definitely compatible with products like the Stream Deck and other controls that are on the market as well. And for some added privacy, the OBSBOT Me Too includes a magnetic privacy cover, as well as an auto sleep feature that puts it to sleep after a specified period of time. It offers a lot of versatile usage with modes for landscape, portrait, and even upside down mounting for, different creative angles depending on what you're trying to achieve. At the end of the day, the OBSBOT Me Too combines performance, style, and convenience all in one tiny webcam body. You can get this advanced webcam now at the retail price of $129 US. If you guys are interested, definitely check out the link below to get your own OBSBOT Me Too webcam. It's totally great if you want to start vlogging, making your own videos, maybe becoming a YouTuber. Anyways, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments below about the OBSBOT Me Too webcam. Other than that, we're gonna dive right back into the rest of the content. But as with any new archetype, you have to scour the card pool to see what older cards might actually be good and playable with them. And it turns out there were actually quite a few that became extremely broken overnight. The fact that these guys were Beast Warriors meant that Fire Formation Tenki instantly became a newfound reinforcement of the army, specifically tailored for Zoodiac over their original intended use for the Fire Fist monster. Speedroid Terratop was also extremely threatening because you can actually special summon this card out for free, search Takum Tomborg, and then overlay into MX Saber Invoker, a card that basically shot up to 70 bucks overnight despite literally being bulk before Zoodiacs were released. This card allowed you to detach material to summon out any level 4 Earth Beast Warrior monster, which was basically all of the Zoodiacs. But if you already had a Zoodiac in your hand, you could overlay instead for Totem Bird, who was an Omni Negate for spells and traps. And for some reason, I actually didn't play Speedroid Terratop for the YCS at the time.
Here with Slim 2. We're here with the top 32 duelists here at YCS Seattle.
And then I also played one of the Ram because I like his name. I actually didn't play the Speedroids, which turned out to be a mistake. But at the time, I was like, oh, there's too much room. They take 2 extra deck slots and then 4 decks in the main slot. So I was like, oh, I'll just play like more traps and Ram. I put Ram in because I never drew monsters, which was because I didn't play Speedroids, obviously. I should have played them, but Totem Bird's also really good.
I'm bad. Zoodiac was one of the first ever one-card engines that could go full combo and was basically the blueprint for modern-day cards like Snake Eye Ash. So a tier 0 format is kind of expected, all things considered, when you think it was 8 years ago to boot. So needless to say, it was basically all Zoodiac mirror matches or Zoodiac TRUE-DRACO mirror matches. All the other decks required 2 or more cards to actually combo off, and they could not handle facing off against a one-card value engine that also played a lot of hand traps and non-engine cards like Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, Cosmic Cyclone, cards that traded really well into the opponent while they would plus off infinite cards thanks to the Zoodiac engine. So obviously this deck was extremely powerful for 8 years ago, never mind today. Literally if you brought back the full power Zoodiac deck, I'm sure it would be tier 1, especially because they can also play Deisha. Okay, to give you guys some context of how powerful this deck is, they've literally had no ban list, unlimited format tournaments in the OCG, and Zoodiac has been able to top a lot of these tournaments. Pretty much your typical one-card starter deck that plays like 30 hand traps. But the interesting thing about Zoodiacs was that you didn't have to play the pure deck or Draco Slayer at all. I mean, you kinda did if you wanted to win. But if you want to have some fun, there were some other options. Much like the Fiendsmith engine, the Zoodiac engine could actually be splashed into a lot of different decks by playing 3 copies of Rapier and 3 copies of Zoodiac Barrage. We had things like Zoodiac Cosmos, Zoodiac Infernoids with the grass is greener, Zoodiac Zombie Minerva piles. Shout out to my buddy Marcus, who actually lent me 2 copies of Ultra Minerva back in the day when they were like 3K each, and now they're like 60K. I was literally so nervous at regionals, I went 1 and 3, but it was fun. The one Zoodiac variant that actually put in a lot of work was none other than TRUE-DRACO Zoodiac. Masterpiece, the TRUE-DRACO Slaying King, was one of the most oppressive towers-like cards at the time. This card could be tribute summoned using any combination of monsters, continuous spell cards, or continuous trap cards. And while it was on the field, it was unaffected by the effects of cards with the same type of card that you used for its tribute summon. And with a whopping 2950 attack, it also had a quick effect much like Trident that allowed you to pop any card on the field, including face downs, by banishing a continuous spell or trap card from your graveyard. This monster was extremely annoying to get rid of because it was basically unaffected by spell cards nor monster effects for the majority of the time that it was face up on the field. So you literally had to try and swing it over by battle, which was also made hard when it could just pop whatever tried to run it over. Setting a Solemn Strike would be your next best bet, but at the same time, you would have to cross your fingers and hope that they didn't pop the Solemn Strike you just set. But what made TRUE-DRACO Zoodiac work the best was the fact that Zoodiac Ram actually triggered in the graveyard to resurrect any Zoodiac whenever it was destroyed and sent there from anywhere. This was highly effective when combined with Dragonic Diagram, the field spell of TRUE-DRACOs that allowed you to destroy a card from your hand or field, you then add a TRUE-DRACO card from your deck to your hand, meaning it not only bridged you to the TRUE-DRACO cards, but it also triggered Ram to then bring back a Zoodiac from your graveyard, so you could go into Broadbow and start to play your Zoodiac lines. This variant was originally played during the first 2 weeks of Zoodiac, but fell out of popularity. The problem was people were predominantly focusing on Masterpiece and only played Masterpiece alongside Dragonic Diagram with a couple of copies of the continuous spells and trap cards for the sole purpose of turboing out Masterpiece. This was the type of build that the OCG players popularized, and none of them were playing any of the other TRUE-DRACO monsters. And of course, the TCG players flocked to the OCG for inspiration and copied this exact build, which was a lot inferior to the real TRUE-DRACO Zoodiac that would later see a lot of success in the TCG format. But this type of deck building really hurt the deck's consistency because all of the TRUE-DRACO cards were effectively bricks. It wasn't until closer to the WCQ that players actually realized there was a better way to build this deck. Instead of focusing on only Masterpiece, they played a far heavier TRUE-DRACO count, but also Ignis Heat and Dynamite Knight, two very oppressive cards that allowed you to search for continuous spell or trap TRUE-DRACO cards whenever your opponent activated a card effect. This meant that the deck had less room for non-engine, but they made up for it with the consistency and the firepower of the TRUE-DRACO cards, of which the continuous spells and trap cards would trigger in the graveyard and pop any monster and or spell or trap card on the field whenever you tributed them or destroyed them off of Dragonic Diagram. Having 2400 and 2500 beaters also made it easy to swing for game, a feat that was previously difficult to do in pure Zoodiac unless you assembled multiple pieces. The upgraded hybrid deck was so effective that it actually took the top 4 spots of the top 8 at the WCQ in North America and ended up even winning the event, just when the majority of the player base had already dismissed the variant as inconsistent and preferred playing pure Zoo. This single event turned that notion entirely on top of its head and proved that TRUE-DRACO Zoodiac was in fact the stronger variant, especially when you could actually play with the deck when Dimensional Barrier was flipped by pivoting to the TRUE-DRACO line. Being able to still play and even summon out Masterpiece while under Dimensional Barrier was just crazy, whereas a pure deck would be forced to pass their turn and hope to survive another turn before being able to play again. Needless to say, this was a big surprise. Ironically enough, this deck also had a much better matchup against pure TRUE-DRACO, the third best deck after pure Zoodiac and TRUE-DRACO Zoodiac, which capitalized on the TRUE-DRACO monsters as well as a huge lineup of powerful floodgates, which could easily be answered thanks to the TRUE-DRACO spell cards. You could then proceed to draw cards off of TRUE-DRACO heritage along the way. Pure TRUE-DRACOs were nowhere near the power of Zoodiacs, especially when the whole world was side decking or even main decking Twin Twisters and Cosmic Cyclone. Now, despite the fact that they were splashable, they were a lot better in their pure shell because you could play a lot more non-engine. This format is also quite iconic because it kind of revolutionized the way that Yu-Gi-Oh worked. Previously, you kind of had to grind for card advantage, but now you could just do it by normal summoning one monster and getting a bunch of free cards. This format also popularized the term extender because basically every deck was playing extenders now, like Shuffle Reborn, Monster Reborn, or any way to bring back a Zoodiac from your graveyard, because in the mirror match, typically it involved ending on a Trident, whose effect could be used immediately to trade with the opposing player's normal summon. So that meant unless you had another way to get a Zoodiac monster on the board during that turn, you probably weren't winning. So extender came from the idea of trying to extend your play so you could keep playing. But you're probably wondering what the mirror match was like. Tech cards like Solemn Strike were played at the very beginning because you could use it to trade with the Zoodiac Xyz monster, or you could set it and then use the effect to negate a Trident on the following turn or a hand trap at worst. Players also shifted over over to the Artifact Sanctum package alongside Artifact Scythe because this locked out your opponent completely from the extra deck. But Dimensional Barrier was one of the most popular cards that was main decked in every single deck because it countered Zoodiac directly. As links had not yet come out, Xyz monsters were basically the only method of summoning from the extra deck, so flipping D-Barrier meant that your opponent skipped their entire turn. This is the reason why D-Barrier was actually $70 to $80 on its own for a single copy. You basically had to play D-Barrier to have any chance of surviving the format, and a player that flipped D-Barrier was often very heavily favored to win. But sometimes you could mind game your opponent a little bit, because no one ever wanted to flip D-Barrier right away, because you'd be going -1 and losing a card. Instead, you would rather chain it to the effect of a Zoodiac Xyz like Broad Bowl, to then negate its effect while also locking your opponent for the rest of the turn after they've invested a monster on the board. Now, some players actually had the big brain foresight to play 4D chess and immediately go into the Trident, skipping Broad Bowl entirely, which is typically what a lot of players would wait for with the D-Barrier. That way they could get at least a Trident pop to trade with their opponent's Trident, or bait out the D-Barrier and then attach another material to the Trident like a Whiptail or another Xyz before that. Pretty interesting stuff. Players also started playing obscure cards like My Body is a Shield, Forbidden Chalice, Enemy Controller, Forbidden Dress, and even Pianissimo. Basically any card that could provide protection against an opposing Trident pop and ensure that you ended your turn on your own Zoodiac engine. Board wipes were also popular. Dark Hole saw a resurgence in popularity because you could trade with the Zoodiac Trident before normal summoning a monster. Some players even played Compulsory Evacuation Device or Mirror Force. Kaijus were back thanks to Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, and certain players like Asala even experimented with Paleozoic trap cards. Konami kinda had to take some semi-drastic measures, and literally semi-drastic because they semi-limited Zoodiac Rapier a month later. But the deck became even more chaotic because with the release of Maximum Crisis, the player base got the first ever taste of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, which actually happened to be quite terrible against Zoodiac because you were only using it on a Fire Formation Tenki or on a Zoodiac Barrage, which meant you were going -1. But this strengthened the deck even more because any rogue deck would just get hit extra hard by Ash Blossom. Imagine you activated that Grass is Greener and they had the Ash. Well, it's basically like if you had Branded Fusion and you got Ash. By now, players were also realizing that the mirror match was very grindy and any extra card helped. The Pot of Desires became maxed out in a lot of Zoodiac decks for that reason. Being able to add an extra card to your hand meant the difference between night and day for stopping a Trident or protecting your own. And you didn't really need to resolve a Rapier combo by any means because you were already winning if you were able to do so. Plus, all of your cards were at 3, so it didn't matter if you banished anything. We also received 2 brand new powerful Zoodiac Xyz monsters. Zoodiac Chakanine allowed you to detach a material to resurrect any Zoodiac in your graveyard, and Zoodiac Hammer Kong protected your monsters from being targeted. Chakanine was especially threatening because you could bring back a Trident, have its effects be negated for your turn, but then use Tiger Mortar to give it a material so you could use it on your opponent's turn, meaning you could still overlay for Trident on top of the Chakanine, giving you 2 Tridents during your opponent's turn. But honestly, in hindsight, it was correct to play 3 Pot of Desires all along from the very beginning. And this is a great example of how you can easily miss things in a format without considering the entire card pool. A lot of times players just listen to each other online in an echo chamber and don't try out cards like Desires, which would have been so broken in the very first event if somebody was actually crazy enough to play it. But by then, the format was getting extremely boring. Much like Fiendsmith Snake Eyes, players were getting sick of seeing the same cards over and over. But then the pro players discovered a hidden combo thanks to a random card tucked within the card pool. It turns out Fusion Substitute was actually a card that could be treated as polymerization and searched off of the Lunalight Black Sheep, who could actually be searched off of Zoodiac Broad Bowl. Fusion Substitute made up for the missing Rapier because then you could make Dagosto Emerald, shuffle back the Black Sheep, draw a card, make another Zoodiac Broad Bowl, search for Black Sheep, search for another copy of Fusion Substitute, draw another card, and then use the effects in the graveyard to draw multiple cards, so you could basically draw a ton of cards. Previously, there was some grinding in the mirror match where card advantage mattered, but now that you're drawing free cards, as long as your Zodiac combo resolved, the format degenerated very fast. The September 2017 ban list said goodbye and banned both Zoodiac Trident and Broad Bowl, along with limiting Rapier. But Zoodiac Barrage being at 3 turned out to be a bit of a problem because other decks splashed it, so they limited Zoodiac Barrage as well. A couple of years later, they brought back Trident, but it turned out to be a little bit too oppressive, and Pure Zoodiac actually became a top tier deck again with the release of Divine Arsenal AA Zeus. And so they were both banned again, and we said goodbye to Zoodiacs once and for all. Yeah, it turns out when Zoodiac Board Bowl can attack directly and then make Zeus to wipe the board, it was a little too powerful. So yeah, that's about it. I thought we'd take the Yugi Time Machine just to see what another toxic format looked like when you had an engine that was just as splash splashable as Fiendsmith. What do you guys think? Did you play the Zoodiac format? Did I miss anything? Also, I'm gonna link my top 32 YCS Seattle Zoodiac deck from that era in the description below, so definitely go check that out if you want to trip down memory lane. By the way, do you guys like content like this when we talk about older formats? Let me know in the comments, like the video if you haven't already, and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.